Hi everyone, a very good evening. Happy Tuesday. What's going on, people? Well, it's another magnificent day, and I hope you also had a marvelous day. And now we have half hour to go. After a half hour, August 3 is gonna be ended, and we would be just marching towards August 4. Isn't it? Another new day to slay our goals. Another new day to take a proper look up to onto our success. Actions. Isn't it? But before that, right here, I would just like to make some positive affirmations, or I would just like to convey my Tuesday thought, and that is all related to the powerfulness of self transformation. Yes. So, if we talk about self transformation, then self transformation is not just making certain changes in ourselves, but it's beyond that, it's more than that. So, whenever we talk about self transformation, then it means shifting yourself towards a completely, entirely new dimension towards perception, towards development and experience, isn't it? Generally, people get misunderstood about both these topics of change management and transformation. But if we talk about changes, then changes may or may not be temporary. They can be short lived, but at times, if we talk about transformation, then they are quite everlasting. They are not short lived, they are long lived. So whenever we are making certain changes with regard to our internal belief system, with regard to our internal opinions, or our belief systems internally with that proper baseline, so that is where the self transformation comes into play. And even my third book, that is entitled as Unbelievable Transformation, you are very much aware about it. That also conveys the same logic. So on this great note, now quickly let's get kick started with our today's interview session. So joining me today on the show is Adam Pear, who is going to be joining me right from London, United Kingdom, and he is a post-traumatic growth coach, accredited life coach, and transformation coach as well. Well, I'm truly elated to have him today with us, and because of him, we have got all these multifaceted topics to discuss. And I'm sure that this interview session is going to be quite impressive and influencing. So without much ado, let me take him on board and quickly let's get kick started. And kindly tune in, bear with me till the end if possible, and you can also check this later on as well.
How you
Hi,
doing?
Adam.
Nice to meet you.
I'm doing really fantastic. How are you doing?
No, good. Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. Really well. Grateful to be on your show.
Yeah, firstly, welcome to the show. It's a great, delightful welcome to you.
Yeah, no, I'm really, really grateful to be here. I really like, you showing what you're about.
Yeah. So, how is your day going on? Was it overexertion, or is it was quite simplistic?
Yeah, I've just been at work today, so I've been at work and then I've just literally come back from work and
All right.
yeah, just hopping on your show. It's been pretty busy, so got a few things, a few projects going on. So yeah, all good.
That's remarkable. And firstly, once again, I would just like to extend a gracious welcome to you. I consider me and you, we are like-minded people, because what you have been doing for so long, that is your show, the Parjavri podcast, and the same
Yeah.
we have also been doing. So your mission is also to inspire, to motivate, and to encourage people, and that is also our ultimate motive. So how it has been your journey with this podcast?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's definitely been a journey. It's there's a lot of learning. When if you get into podcasting, it's a very very large process, and
Yeah.
everyone's got different podcast themes. But the journey since I started has been pretty incredible. I when I started out, I had the idea for a couple of years, and then I
Yeah.
didn't really kick it off until 3 or 4 years later when I decided to do it like I think it was last March. But I was held back
Okay.
by fear, self doubt. What are people going to think about it?
Yeah.
All
It
of these kind of
happens.
self limiting, yeah, all these self limiting beliefs. And, I've just kind of thought I'd do it around, providing value, connecting with people and their story. And, I've just kept doing it ever since. And it's something, where you have to learn about patience, especially,
Yeah.
as you have to edit a lot of content. You have to spend a
Correct.
lot of time networking and
Yes. Onto the screen.
yeah, and there's a lot of elements in it that are very, very difficult, but I think, it's really rewarding by, connecting with people and, kind of learning about the whole process of it.
Yeah. That's really uplifting. And that is the powerfulness of communication. That is the powerfulness of, that connection, that human psychology, that human
Mm.
spiritedness. But whenever we learn the other people's struggles, their setbacks, what painstaking efforts they have done, how it has been their transformative journeys, what kind of goals they have pursued. So whenever we face these kind of obstacles or traumas in our future, then it can be somewhat helpful. So even this kind of experience, because I have also been doing the same thing, so that's quite relatable. I reckon with you, I concede with you, fact to fact.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. And I think, we've all got something to share. And I think, when we go through things in life, we can use those experiences, as
Yeah.
strengths, motivations to put into something, and I think, with podcasting, you can, it's basically a vessel that you can put, or like Instagram lives, you can put your experiences to good use and connecting with other people,
Yes.
and it's really rewarding. And I think you learn so much about yourself in that process as well. Like for me, I used to kind of filter information out a little bit, and I used to
Okay.
kind of listen to what I wanted to hear. Whereas, with podcasting, you have to really listen to what people are saying. You have to really see that person and have that space.
Yeah.
Um, it's really important because people want to feel met and connected and listened to. And it's like, if you can't do that, then your life isn't going to be as easy as someone else who can really tune in and listen to someone, and kind of provide that space. Because first impressions are a big thing, and that's whatever you
Yeah.
do in life, whether that's a podcast, whether that's going for a job interview, whether that's a relationship.
It lies
All these
everywhere.
little, yeah, all these small things matter.
Yes, that's entirely right. And it also adds up to our wisdom acquisition. It adds up to our insights, to our knowledge. And when all those kind of experiences are much needful, then we have to reflect that as well. We have to showcase that. And we never know, knowledge shared is knowledge generated. So even it can be personal enriching also. It can be helpful to other people also.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think, with podcasting, you just have to start, like anything in life, you just have to start and just, I think we expect a lot of ourselves from ourselves in life and society. And,
Yeah.
there can be a lot of pressure to do certain things in life. And I think with podcasting, you just have to learn as you go along and kind of see it in the long game. You just know that if you nurture and water it enough, a bit like a plant, it gets better and you get better over time. And that's like with anything in life. And, like I started doing podcasts on audio. I just had my phone and I did it on
Okay.
Anchor. It was like a telephone call. I didn't feel confident to do video like this when I started.
Yeah.
So,
Then later
you
on,
know,
you switched to Zoom meetings.
yeah, and I tried Zoom meetings and I got a bit better at that. And then you kind of think, what's the next thing? Okay, Instagram Live, I'm going to live stream. And then you then think, okay, what's the next thing? So we're constantly evolving, as we go along through life. But I think you've ultimately got to do what you think is best for you, what you feel comfortable with. And, sometimes you have to step out your comfort zone. But if you just want to do a video or you just want to do audio, that's absolutely fine.
Exactly. And you also talked, that whenever we are starting any type of our goal, whenever we are starting any kind of new venture, future endeavor, then we have that self-doubt in ourselves. We face that kind of bewildering situation, puzzled situation, that we are in a dilemma. We should go with this or not. We should follow this goal or not, or how the future things will be like. So were you in that state of mind when you just initially started this podcast, or what kind of coping strategies you used right there?
Yeah, well, I basically, was scared. I was scared to
Mhm.
death of doing it. I'd never done it before, and it's like anything new is scary. And I think, we're
Yes.
wired to run away from things that scare us, and I think that's why a lot of people don't do certain things because
Yeah.
they're scared, and
I
they,
see.
those kind of fight or flight responses get triggered and anxiety. So I just started doing it, and I didn't think much of it to begin with. It was just an idea. So
Yeah.
I was kind of testing the water, just kind of learning. And I think after the first five, I let other people listen to it. And I think, in the process of entrepreneurship, podcasting, to be around the right people and to have people give you feedback on what it is that you're doing. And I basically, didn't really think much of it. I did a couple of episodes, and a few people gave me good feedback, and I was like, there's something here. So I just kept doing it, and kept believing in myself. And you're going to come across those hurdles in yourself, like maybe self-doubt, or this isn't going anywhere, or because I think sometimes we want excuse me, we want things now, we want things to be happening now. And I used to be like that with podcasting. And I think often we can look at how many views we're getting or how many likes, and it's not always about how many downloads.
Keep tracking of all the statistics.
Yeah, and it's a lot of the time it's like who listens to it and not how many. Like out of that 50 or however many, there might be 5 people who can really help you in some way or reach out to you. So it's something you have to just push through,
Yeah, I see your point, and as you said, that whenever we are focusing on just familiar goals, whatever things we are acquainted to, we know about all those things, then it's not exact learning, but whenever we pursue things that are quite new, that are quite unique, and we have not tried that is quite unprecedented. So that is where our new learning process, comes into picture. That is where we become more self-confident. We have that kind of more rigid self-esteem, self-vigor, self-love, and it's fun learning. Isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We're all constantly learning, evolving, and growing. And I think a lot of the time, we're under pressure by what other people say, other people's opinions. Sometimes maybe certain traditions or cultures or whatever, or even upbringing. People may say, you should do this in life, or why don't you do this? And people start looking at what other people are doing, and then we feel under pressure and obliged to be doing what they're doing. And until some people go through life, they don't realize, I don't actually want to be X, Y, Z. And they've just kind of followed that path because other people have followed the path, or that's something they just absorbed growing up. And, you just have to try things out. And I think there's a lot of pressure on people now to figure out what they want to be. And, society and school and education, I mean, that's another podcast. But we're constantly learning and growing and evolving, and we never really stop. And, if you want to do something, you can go and do it. If you're doing a certain job and you want to do something else, you can. So we're kind of, we have so much potential within us as people, as human beings. I think we really just need to get to know yourself, get to know ourselves, and, make the right questions, and if something doesn't feel right, we need to listen to that, or if something feels right, we have to listen to ourselves. And we just have to get out of our own way sometimes.
Yeah, very true. And even it's just the power of that self-analysis or introspection. Like, we must manage time to do that proper qualitative self-analysis. Like, are we going on the right track or not? How we are looking up to things? What are our life goals? What are our short-term goals, our long-term goals, our interests? So generally, this is the flaw of today's generation. Like, we don't need to spend time with ourselves, just we are in that proper hustle bustle. We are leading that busy and productive life. But at times we need that kind of short-term break as well, And I am of this personal opinion that there is always a scope of self-improvement and betterment. What's your take on this?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, we grow when, like I did a quote the other day, and it's like, we don't grow in comfortable situations. And I think, sometimes you have to get to know you get to know yourself when you put yourself in those kind of uncomfortable situations, or if you're thrown out your comfort zone, how you're reacting and how you're responding to those situations, whether that's, working in a restaurant or working, with other people, or, whatever it may be, whatever you apply that to, you're going to, if you're going and doing something that you've never done before, you're going to probably feel apprehensive, nervous, scared. And, you're kind of challenging yourself because you're having to kind of find your way in that role, whatever it may be. So I think we can, we really get to know ourselves, spending time with ourselves, even in, the hustle and bustle of life. I think sometimes, you have to take a step back and be, like that self-reflection and be mindful of, your thoughts, your energy, your behaviors, the language that you speak with yourself. And, it's a discipline. It's not something that is very
Yes,
easy to do. You
true.
have to, say 1%
It's
each
an
day.
art.
Yeah. And, some people, something has to happen in their lives for them to then start being that way. That was what
Yeah,
happened with me. And sometimes people, they do it. I think working out, if you go to a gym or you do something where you're learning, starting something new where you're learning as a beginner, is very self-reflective because you're thinking about your progress and how you're getting on, or if you're doing a new job. I think it's important that we do things like that. That we do things that are sometimes bigger than ourselves, or they kind of make us kind of start from the bottom and work our way up. I think there's something very kind of therapeutic about that. Does that make sense?
yeah.
That
You're
answers your question.
absolutely right. Yeah, and there is that, the power of self-discipline, self-awareness, and awareness and the self-regulation, that we also need to regulate ourselves truly. That yes, we have took this setback. This was our painstaking effort, or any kind of disappointment, pain, or any kind of mental trauma, anything, be it physical disability
Mm.
as well. But then again, it's not that it would be long lived. It will be temporary, it is short lived. So we must be having that clear vision that yes, all, even only our one day can be bad, but not our entire life. So this
Yeah.
kind of proper attitude, this kind of happy-go-lucky attitude is also needed sometimes,
Mm.
because we are leading in this traumatic life, very complicated sometimes it feels, because we also need to manage work-life balance, our professional and personal life.
Yeah. All of it comes down to discipline, accountability. You have to be accountable for, in my mind, you have to be accountable for your actions and your life and what's happening for you. And, sometimes people can fall into that victim mindset where they say, it's
Yes.
not me, it's X, Y, Z. And it's like, well, hold on a sec. They might be blaming things on the past, or it's because of X, Y, Z. And, at the end of the day, it comes down to you. And you have to be,
Yeah.
disciplined enough and accountable enough to say, look yourself in the mirror and say, maybe it is me. Maybe I do need to do X, Y, Z. And it's different for each person, but ultimately, if you're accountable, you take accountability of your life and what's going on, and you
Correct.
accept, and then you can start making those steps to where you want to go. Whereas if you're not doing that, you're just pushing the boat out, and you're choosing not to.
Yeah.
You see it quite a lot.
Yeah, and these are the short-term differences between all that self-esteem, self-love, and this self-awareness. But I also got carried away by your that designation. You are also a post-traumatic growth coach into
Yeah.
that mental prosperity. So, what is that peculiar attribute that you particularly love about this, doing all those kind of endeavors?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is, being able to see yourself or parts of yourself sometimes in other people, and you can relate to them because you've probably once been in that place in your life, and I think when you can really listen to people, relate
Yeah,
to them on like, a deep humanistic level, because sometimes, when you've been in a certain place in your life, it's rewarding when you're able to kind of use your experiences, and give people a little bit of advice, and coach them or mentor them, and help them. Even if it's like 1%, even if you help them a little bit,
yeah,
you still listen to them, and people gain a lot from that, because I think a lot of people
absolutely.
are just wanting to be heard. They want to be listened to. I think especially in the past couple of years, a lot of people have been experiencing a lot of tension, a lot of stress with COVID. It's definitely increased in a lot of people, and people just have a lot going on, and they just need to talk. And I think sometimes, you have to go through certain things in life to get to certain places. And, even if you're going through certain things, there's so much kind of strength being gained through
Yeah.
that discomfort or what may be going on. But at the time, you can't see it.
Yes, truly. And even before you joined, I was just talking about the powerfulness of self transformation. Like this is that, you know, general difference between change or transformation, that changes can be
Mhm.
temporary, but if we talk
Yeah.
about transformations, and they are quite long lived, they are everlasting, and it's quite on a concrete level, it's quite rigid. Whenever we are making transformations, they are quite future oriented, right?
Mm.
And even I am happy to tell you that my third book, that is Unbelievable Transformation, that also conveys the same logic, that
Yeah.
yes, we must be open, we must be welcoming towards making these kind of transformations. And this reminded me that you are also a transformation coach. And even generally, you know, people are afraid to do these kind of transformations, they're afraid to get out of their comfort zones. So what is that professional advice that you have for them? Like, what must be their first consideration?
In consideration in doing what, becoming like a coach, you mean, or would
Yeah,
you?
transformation coach.
I would say, you know, you need to be, you know, you need to be accountable. Like I said, it goes to being accountable, you know, with your own life and your own self. And you've got to be okay in yourself. And you have to look at yourself, you know, when you say do a course in coaching or you're thinking of going into it, things are going to come up for you,
Yeah.
emotions or baggage or past trauma, because when you're doing certain modules, for me, you have to be the client and you have to step into the shoes of the client to understand what it's like to be asked those questions and to go into that place. And things are going to come up for you when you're learning, and you have to accept that, and you have to go into that, because in order to go into that and accept that, you have to step into the shoes of the other person, and it's a big thing. And if you really want to do it, you have to do it for the right reason. I think a lot of people sometimes do it because of the money, or because someone told them to do it, or they see someone online tell them to do it. And you have to do it for the right reason. You have to want to make a difference in some way. You have to, yeah, because otherwise, if you do it just doing it for the money, then I
Yes,
don't think it's
it
not as
depends.
authentic. You can see that.
Yeah. And, you know, having good decision making skills is also quite necessary. You know, because at times, generally, people are of the opinion that they take uninformed decisions, they take
Mm.
invalid decisions at the undesired time. So I think that is also a real time soft skill that people must understand. This art of communication, art of approaching to people, this art of personal integrity, that we must be having that honesty and moral conduct, that self discipline that you call it as. So that is quite needful in these today's times, and that is responsible for our own personal growth, our personal effectiveness.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like, when you go into coaching, it's okay for you to have coaching. Sometimes, when you're doing that, you might need to have mentoring or coaching. And, that's how we grow and become better as people as well. Because I think, people we have blind spots sometimes, and that's okay. And I
Yeah.
think, in order for us to have that help or supervision, allows you to grow and become better in your role as well. So, you have to be okay with having certain things said to you. You have to be okay with going through the motions, and it's all a process. And
Yes.
just being yourself, really. Being
Yeah.
your authentic self is a big thing.
Yes, absolutely. It's the ultimate formal affair. You know, that we must be true
Yeah,
to ourselves, and that is where we will get that self confidence, that self assurance that yes, we can do it. That will inculcate that quality assurance in our work.
yeah.
And Adam, also tell us something about your early life, that how it has been your upbringing, your education, and how did you come up with this idea of becoming a life coach?
Oh wow, big questions. Good questions. Yeah, my upbringing, my family really great. They always supported me in what I do. They never said this is what you need to do. I've kind of left me to my own devices in some sense. And
Yeah.
it's kind of long story short. I tried different jobs out, tried different things out, tried different courses out. School
Okay.
for me, I didn't really take too much seriously at school. I've talked about it quite a few times. I was kind of driven by my ego. I didn't really care where I was going. I was around the wrong
Yeah.
people. I was having fights at school. Certain things are happening. And then until like the last year, I ended up kind of falling through a skylight, which, woke me up. It really
Okay.
made me step back and think about, my life and what I was doing, and, everything I was doing, what I wanted to do, what I shouldn't be doing. I was pretty hard on myself, but it really woke me up. And unfortunately, that had to happen. It was almost like divine intervention, like it that happened, and I really, woke up. I kind of stopped doing certain things, stopped being around other people.
Yeah.
And then from that accident, I had PTSD, anxiety, depression, lots of different, traumas. A lot was happening with that. A lot was happening at school. A lot was happening at home. So it was a very, very difficult time. Probably one of the hardest times of my life. A lot was happening all at once. I was only 13 or 14. So from that, I kind of, when I came through it, when I came through it through therapy and everything else, I, gained more of an interest in, psychology, mental health, because I'd had my own battles. And I've always been interested in people and talking to people, even from a young kid. So it just kind of opened up on a window, and I got more interested in psychology. And, I tried different jobs out. Certain things didn't work for me. I got into university, had to retake my maths. And I did criminology, psychology of criminals. But I knew deep down I didn't want a career in this, so I dropped out. And I then was trying to figure it out. I was trying to figure it out, and I did a course in psychology with like Open University, where you home study. And I then did a course in coaching, and I started reading Tony Robbins. I started watching Anthony Robbins, and I was like, wow! I really connected with this. And then I started getting into Gary Vee, and I started watching, public speakers, and start connecting with people who are in that field. And I was like, this kind of really connects with me. So that's kind of what got me into it, really. It's just certain situations happening in my life and experiences and compiled together with kind of who I am and my interests, if that makes sense. And that's kind of how it kind of happened,
Yeah, that's commendable. I grasp your point, and it was quite pleasing to hear, that at the respective time, at the desired time, you got captivated, you got fascinated with, what later on you analyzed it as your passion, with that people management task also, with this podcast also, and with this kind of endeavors related to physical health, prosperity, everything, happiness. I'm truly glad for you and proud of you as well. And as you also said, that it doesn't matter that at a school what kind of level you are having, but even there are some real-time skills, that soft skills, the real-time skills that are quite needful to lead a more fulfilling and great life, personally. So those kind of skills must be learned. Even somehow I find it a flaw in our education system as well, like that rote learning, that theoretical learning must not be supported. That practical, that pragmatic learning must have the proper consideration.
It's really important. I think, it is important to get, to learn and to, have a good education. It is really important. And I think, it depends what school you're in, depends what teachers you have. I think, I can count a couple of teachers that I really liked, that were really good, but for me, like when I was at school, my attention wasn't there. I was thinking about, so it was survival, really. I was in the groups of people. I wasn't thinking about my education until the last year. I was just thinking about, is this going to happen? Am I okay? Is a fight going to happen again today? Or, all of these things. So like my attention was like 20% on education, which if I was to go back to school now, I would have probably got different grades. But, sometimes you have to go through certain paths to kind of really realize what you want to study or what you want to do, because there is like, you're in a system in education, I get that, and there's a lot of information thrown at you. So I think people are kind of told that they need to figure it out, straight away, what you're going to be, what you're going to do. And that's a lot of information for a kid. And I think you just have to do your best. You have to be disciplined yet again. You have to be accountable. if you want to do well, you have
Absolutely.
to put in those steps. You have to put in those reps. You have to, want to do well. It's not going to happen overnight. And if you're into,
Exactly.
maths, English, science, especially if you have a passion for it and you have a good teacher who believes in you, I think that can make a massive difference.
Yeah, surely. And our efforts count, our learning, our experience count. Uh, Maybe for the time being, it may happen that we must not be getting all those productive or desired outcomes, results. That is the people's opinion, people's, their priority list, that to check all our results, our outcomes. But for the time being, it may or may not be possible. But that experience, that what we have done, what we have pursued regarding to our self discipline, regarding to our self goals, that is necessary. We
Yeah.
will may not be guilty, we will be not having that self guilt that yes, we didn't we have not done this,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah,
must be not
definitely.
there.
I think as well, like one thing I didn't mention or I just thought of now is, in school, like in the Western world, like in England, like, or in school in
Yeah.
general, they don't really tell you that it's okay to fail. They don't talk
Yes.
about failure. It's just about grade, a lot of it's grades and marks and statistics. They don't teach you how, that's okay to fail. And when you get out in the world in life, you don't realize, it's okay to fail sometimes. You bounce back and you grow. It's how you learn. It's how you grow even more sometimes. Sometimes you have to fail, to reassess, then again, and be mindful and
Yeah.
self-evaluate. Sometimes, it is okay to fail. It's like, it's not okay to fail and give up and not stop.
Yes.
That's where you kind of have to draw the line. But, even if you fail, it's okay. You just have to just get up and try again and look at what you need to do different in order to get a better grade or mark. But I wish I knew this when I was at school. But we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves because we don't want to fail. And sometimes you're going to fail, and
Yeah.
obviously if you're in an exam, if you're doing the mocks, practice exams, then okay, you're going to fail, or maybe if you do, but then try and do your best to get the best grade that you can. And I think you have to do it for yourself. And I think
Yeah.
you have to do it for the right reason and not for someone else. And I think that's the problem sometimes. People are people pleasing and they're doing things because they want to please the teacher, they want to please the parents, they want to
Yeah.
please.
And that is
And
all temporary.
yes, it's temporary, and you have to do it. You have to know that in your mind that you did the best that you could do. That's it. That's with anything in life. You did the best that you could do, whether that's work, whether that's tests, exams, and if you didn't do too well, then you try again and you look at what you need to do in order to get better for next time.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's a part of success, getting failed many times or n number of times, it doesn't matter. But whenever you are failing, there is that, as you said, we become more sincere, we become more conscious of our efforts, that we must be, we must be finding that what has been the flaw, what has been the demerit, what we have done wrong. We must be mistake oriented. We have to find
Mm.
that, yes, this is the thing, this is the phase where we lagged, and this we can improve further. So obviously it has to add up to our values, it has to add up to our knowledge,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And you think about, with your podcasts and what you do and in life, you reach out to people. I'm sure you've
Yeah.
experienced that I have. Sometimes you reach out to people to be
Yes.
on your show and you don't get any response, or you get people to say
Yeah.
no. And
And scheduling
that
is
can
the
be pain.
biggest challenge.
Yeah. And you have to get used to that sometimes. And sometimes, you kind of get used to it. It doesn't hurt as much. But then again, sometimes it might happen again and it's still difficult, but it doesn't hurt as much as, the first few times, you just build up like a callus to it. But, over time in life, it might sting a little bit, but, do you know what I mean? You just keep bouncing back and you have to get comfortable with that. You not always, things aren't always going to go your way, and you're going to get people to say no.
Yeah.
You're going to get people who don't respond. And you've got to be okay with that. You've got to keep on going because you have a bigger purpose. You have a bigger reason why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that's for sure. And also now let's talk about the public speaking part. You have done n number of, I think 200 plus podcast or your show. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember the correct statistic? How many episodes you have done?
I think this year I've done close to 300. I've still got quite a lot of episodes I need to post. So I'm probably close to 300 at the minute.
Yeah,
which is pretty crazy.
Some people have this kind of stage fear, we can also call it as, and that public speaking fear, because just knowing any kind of linguistic language, but suppose the person is quite fluent in that language, they know all its basics, but then knowing all that accent, that sentence transformation, that vocabulary is another thing. But then going on a stage and then being accountable, being purposeful to many people out there, that is quite challenging. And this is where people face severe difficulties with public speaking. So what do you want to say?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think with public speaking or, podcasting or whatever it might be that you're going into, I think, you have to just start small in some sense. If you're wanting to do a video, if you're wanting to do a podcast, but you feel uncomfortable and you're not ready to do a podcast for 20 minutes or an hour, start by just doing a small video. Do a video for 30 seconds or a video for a minute and post that. And, just do that. Start small. Do a video for a minute, or do a clip
stay in your comfort zone.
Yeah, you're just getting a feel for it, and you're just seeing how it's kind of working, and do that for a while, and then build it up to 5 minutes, and then after a while, you might then do it to 15 minutes or half an hour, and then before you know it, you're not even thinking about the time. You're just kind of doing it. You have to support yourself. You have to be around the right people who are going to support you. If those people aren't with you and physically, you can find them online. You can network with people on LinkedIn and Instagram. There's other apps as well. And go in communities where other people are doing it. There's no such thing as an excuse not to. There's so many communities on Facebook. There's people like, yourself on Instagram. There are so many resources that, where you can feel encouraged and get advice from people. And someone who's doing long videos or live streams, they were once in your shoes. They had to start somewhere, and we all have to start somewhere. And I think it's part of being humble as well. When you think about that, it really kind of breaks it down, and you have to start somewhere. But I think fear is part of the process. It's scary. It's intimidating. Even if you do a live with things, people are joining right now, I don't know how many people, but people are joining right now. And that can be intimidating sometimes. And you have to be present and think about the here and now. If you start thinking about all the other stuff that's irrelevant, then you're not going to be in the flow. You're not going to be in the here and now.
Yes, exactly. And that has to be, with that proper rigorous practice. If you must not have started your podcast, then you must be, deprived of all that transformation journeys, listening to many people out there, listening their struggles. And of course, it self-enriches ourselves, whenever we listen to other person's story, other person's success story, then it adds to ourselves, to our personality. And so practice makes a man perfect, whenever we are inviting people to our podcast, to our interviews, then it's just like breaking the ice session. Firstly, it's because obviously all are strangers for ourselves at that particular time being, but we have to create that proper emotional, sentimental effort, and then to make him or her at a comfort zone. And because humans are multifaceted,
Yeah, that's it. And I see it like sharpening a sword. It's like your craft and what you do, whatever that is, whether that's podcasting, creating art, talking to people. The more you do it, the sharper that sword gets. You have to kind of sharpen your sword, and you have to kind of beat it down. You have to keep going at it. And the compound effect. If you do something 1% each and every day or every week, over time that builds up. So say you do one podcast a week. For every week, or if you do a podcast every single day or however many, that compounds, and before you know it, over time, you're gaining, momentum and resilience, and you're growing, even though you might not be thinking about it or that you even know it. And
Yeah.
like you said, you talk about people's like human behavior. We create patterns, we create routines, we create things that are comfortable. We seek comfort. So, a lot of it, is in our subconscious mind, and it goes, when you think about it, you peel back the layers even more. It goes even deeper into belief systems, modalities, blueprints, why, what our story is and why we're doing things, and, people's past. So we are pretty complicated, multifaceted humans when you think about it. There's so many reasons why people are doing what they're doing. And that's something that, I really love, and something that I'm really
Okay.
curious about in people. Why are they doing what they're doing? What's brought that person to where they are now?
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it all, with every person.
Yes. And everyone is unique in their own ways. They have their own different kind of passions to pursue. They have own different kind of choices. And it's my personal opinion that life is all about making valid decisions and choices. You know,
Mm,
So I also see your point eye to eye. We have parallel thoughts on this, and it is just the same like aims and objectives. That yes, this process has to be done on a modularization basis. That several n number of modules have to combine, and then it would add up to our holistic development or overall development. And same lies with that also. Like, firstly, we need to accomplish those short-term objectives to accomplish our ultimate goal. We must be having
mm,
that long-term goal in our mind, but it has to be done in phases. It has to be done in stages. So
mm.
we need these kind of consistent efforts that people find them quite abrupt, people find them quite clumsy, and they feel sometimes lethargic, just out of their
Mm,
mind. you know
mm.
so they are mentally down, just downtrodden. But then it's not, as you said, it's not overnight success. If we are getting overnight success, then it will be just temporary. It will not be a long-lived success. So
Yeah,
everyone has to aspire for continuous happiness, continuous welfare, continuous well-being, isn't it?
yeah. No, I agree. I think, a lot, happiness is a very, deep topic when you think about it.
Yeah.
And happiness is very, very different for each person. And I think, what I've learned a lot as well is the small things. It's the small things that matter. It's the small things that are big things, and the
Yes.
small things count. And it can be, you know, looking at being grateful in when gratitude comes into it, looking at what you have
Yeah.
in your life, and, you know, small things like, maybe having, a cup of tea, and, grateful for, what's around you, your surroundings, the people, your relationships, all these things, coming together. And I think, like, people, when we talk about wanting instant results and instant gratification, society's very fast. You can,
Yeah.
you can download something like that. And then if you think about people's upbringing, if they've always had things given to them, or whatever, then that they absorb that, and then they take that into the adult world. But it's very, very deep. But I think, people, we have the ability to do whatever we set our minds to. I think a lot of the time we can also complicate the process for ourselves. We can overthink things.
Yes. It happens.
But we can get out of our own way, and we can, create a life that we want to live. But I think I'm not saying be absolutely hard on yourself. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you have to be, to some extent disciplined if you want to achieve something, if you want to be a certain way. And we're more than capable of doing that.
Correct. And generally, it happens like people start seeking happiness from the external factors, from external
Mm,
people, but it lies within ourselves. We are responsible. We are our own boss for what we are doing, for all our efforts, for all the kind of privileges. And as you mentioned, we must be embracing gratitude. We must be of the thankful, grateful attitude that yes, these are the necessary privileges that we have, and that making powerful and positive affirmations, at the start
mm,
of the day, at the daybreak time, that is quite needful. Making to-do lists, making that productivity journals, um, you know, just utilizing our time into something productive. That is all that we need for all the success, and the same lies to health as well. Even this
Yeah.
COVID has taught us that we have to be health conscious. So how is the condition there, considering all the lockdown and COVID? In London, how is there?
Yeah, well, I'm based in Cornwall in the UK, but like across the UK, I mean, it's the first lockdown was difficult. You know, like it happened. I think was it
Yeah.
March, sometime in March 2020. I think everywhere.
Yes.
That was a
It was
challenge.
heart-wrenching.
Yeah, so it was, new. It was very, very, scary. We were forced to, kind of stay home and be restricted. And then we had another lockdown. I can't even remember when, but I know it eased, I think, in April this year. And right now we've got everything open. We have everything open now. The vaccine's been rolled out. We've got still, thousands of cases, but I think we have a massive increase in cases, and then it's kind of slumped down a bit, which, I'm not a scientist, so I don't really understand how things are working, but there's definitely been, a peak, and then it's gone down, but there's still cases, ongoing. But we kept the borders open and let people in, even though we couldn't go anywhere. So there was still, the COVID is still spreading, which that's political, stuff, conversation. But yeah, things are opening up. Everything's open now. We can only travel to certain countries. No, you can travel to countries, but there's a traffic light system. And if you go to, say, red label countries, you have to pay for a hotel, you have to self-isolate, etc., have to buy a test. So it's a lot harder now to travel if you want to travel, especially people who come from, say maybe, who have a couple of kids and a family and they're all on minimum wage or they've only got certain salaries. It's very difficult for them to go abroad because it's so expensive to buy the test and everything. But that's basically where it's at. We've kind of, I mean, I don't want to get into politics, but I think we could have handled it a lot better over here, but it's okay for now, everything's open.
Yes, all right. And even here also in India, things are quite topsy-turvy, even the previous lockdown last year's. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. I was just laughing at the words you mentioned. Yeah, it's all been, yeah.
Yes. And even the last year's lockdown, it was quite an unprecedented time. Everything was new. And that's why it was quite tough to adapt and to be of the change oriented attitude. But it somehow helped. And now again, the second wave came and again it hit us back. Even people, they were of that free mind that they were not taking enough precautions right there. And that is also quite obvious because this thing happens person to person. It varies person to person, The people were having necessary privileges as well, but then there were people below the poverty line. They were not having that necessary privileges, So it was not, we can't say that everyone must have be doing something productive because people were going through hard times. People were going through health complications, The ones who have experienced this COVID for a very sight scene.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very, very difficult, and people have had to adapt, people have had to pivot in business, people have had to change their jobs. It's been a time where people have reassessed their lives and just stopped, and a lot of good things have come out of COVID. I don't think it's all bad. I think the media has painted a certain picture on a lot of things, and the media and the news, I mean, I won't get too much into that, but post a lot of things that are negative, and there are a lot of things that are positive from COVID that have happened. With people starting new businesses. Yeah. But I think, there's a spectrum. I've spoken to many different people throughout this when it happened. And there's a lot of people who are doing well. There's a lot of people who are surviving. There are a lot of people who are thriving. I think it's really highlighted people's true colors, if that makes sense. Especially people who are, very, very wealthy. They're doing certain things like Jeff Bezos flew to space, which is great, but he's got the money that could help people who need it most, but he's not. He's playing around in space. But anyway, it's really highlighted people's true colors, if that makes sense. And a lot of people have done really great things in COVID. Yes, it's sad. A lot of people have passed away and died, which is terrible. But It's made people really think about their health. It's really made people think about their jobs.
Yeah. They became more health conscious.
Yeah, and a lot of people have gone the other way and not done any of that. And they've gone the other way and they're just, do you know what I mean? So there's a whole massive spectrum with COVID and the pandemic. People have had to adapt. Even myself, my mindset has completely changed. I'm very extroverted. I'm very sociable. You know, I live with family at the minute. It's completely changed the way I see situations. Like, you know, should I really go to that place? Should I do X, Y, Z? You know, if I meet somebody, I'm going to take a COVID test. I take COVID tests at work. So it's completely kind of freshed everything in some way, you know, how we think and how we behave. It's really changed a lot of people's psychology. You know, a lot of things have happened in business and a lot of changes, and we have to adapt and push forward and move forward in the best way that we can, you know.
Yes, and there is no exaggeration to the fact that it affected every domain, it affected every kind of person, you know, in some way or the another. So that was like, again, we can call it as a mental trauma, trauma of physical health, a trauma of mental, spiritual, emotional, every kind of prosperity got affected with this.
Yeah, and it's still happening, you know, it's like a ripple effect. I think, you know, I think we haven't seen the repercussions of everything that's been happening with this yet, you know. I mean, I don't want to sound like negative in some way, but I think we've all kind of, you know, if we think about it, we've all kind of been traumatized, I think, from this whole experience in some way, you know, like we've all been affected in our own way from this. You know, in some way, it's been a silver lining for me with my podcast, you know, because it really made me stop in my tracks and really think about what I was doing. You know, I was just spinning my wheels. I think most people, I was just working in hotels, spinning my wheels. And lockdown happened. I was like, you know, oh yeah, my podcast. Maybe why don't I try this? And that's been,
you got
a
the right
lining.
pick at the right time.
Yeah, which is you know, kind of like fate, really. You know, it's pretty crazy how it's kind of panned out. You know, and I'm really grateful for, you know, all the friends that I've made, all the connections that I've made. I'm so grateful, you know, for people like yourself reaching out and connecting with. So, you know, for me, I didn't really know where my kind of tribe was. I didn't really know, you know, where my kind of, what's the right word? Like, yeah, like people were. Do you know what I mean? Like, I kind of felt very, very different in some way. Then I started connecting with people like yourself. I'm really humbled by that. I'm really grateful and really touched, you know, and I'm just really blessed to be able to have these experiences and to be in this place, and to have opportunities and to be able to help other people, you know, through finding this. So it's been a really liberating time, you know.
Yes, it is self-liberating, and even I have also experienced the same thing, you know, that human connection. Whenever we are connecting with strangers, with great people out there, success-spender people out there, and then listening their stories, it's again a win-win vibe in ourselves. And if we must not have started this, then we would be missing a great part of our life. You know, as you said, it added to your self-alignment, it added to our self-regulation, that yes, we did something new and we realized that also. And we have to keep it continued.
Yeah, definitely. You have to be consistent. I think that's one of the important things, you know, consistency is key. And, you know, if you do something enough, you'll get better at it over time. And you just have to be patient, keep on doing it. You know, connect with the right people. And I think if you know why you want to do it, you know, it'll kind of spur you on even more. And it's just really powerful, you know, because I think as well, you don't know what opportunities are going to come from it. You don't know who's going to listen to it or what other people are going through in their lives. And someone might be going through something really horrific and they hear or listen to your show and it changes them. It helps them, you know. And it's these ripples, you know, in what you're doing. And then someone else mentioned it to someone else, and it just kind of grows. So it's really powerful, you know. It's that being organic, you know, that organic growth is quite something. And I think, you know, one of my big role models is Joe Rogan, you know, like his podcast. And he started 11 years ago, and he was just kind of doing it as a bit of a goof. and he's got a, you know, he's one of the most successful podcasters in the world. So,
Yeah.
and there's many other people out there as well. You know, I've got a lot of role models and mentors that I've met along the way who've got podcasting shows. You know, two of my friends who are, you know, ex-military, called
Okay.
Left the Grid podcast. They look at, you know, human behavior and pattern recognition. And yeah, you just meet so many amazing people along the way.
Yes, exactly. And it's quite impactful, it's quite organic, it has that human vibe, human touch. And also, lastly, let's talk about that NLP. You know, it is
Mm.
on your bucket list yet you want to do a proper certification in
Yeah.
that neuro linguistic programming. Is it? Am I right?
Yeah, it's something that I'm still, you know, learning and doing. You
Yeah.
know, I'm still doing the course. And, you know, neuro-linguistic programming, it's, you know, you're basically looking at, you know, the psychology, how the brain works, how behaviors work, you know, people's
Yes.
modalities, their blueprints. It really goes deep, deep down. A bit like if you imagine an iceberg on the water, you go deep down into the things that we don't
Yeah.
see, you know, and energy, you know, how thoughts work and behaviors. It really taps into all those areas. So it's really fascinating, and it's a really effective way, you know, to help other people.
Yes, it's a wonderful science. And you know, just it's all about mind mapping. It's all about that we have to train our mind in some way or the
Mm.
another. Again, a human psychology, you know, and even I have also done a proper certification in this for just 4 to 5 days, I think. And
Yeah.
then the training has got done in that particular stages. Like first day, they just told that why and how, you know, we need to train
Mm.
our mind. Then they move upwards. It's again just like that iceberg model, that
Mm.
what is our all about our conscious mind, our subconscious mind. Then the
Mm.
second day, they told that according to person specific attribute, what we need to do, how we need to self-analyze ourselves, self-realize ourselves, our goals, everything, and then correlating it, aligning it with our goals. You know, so
Mm.
it's again a fun learning this because it's
Yeah.
related to human spiritedness.
Yeah, it's so interesting, you know, when you go deeper into it, you start learning more about yourself, and you kind of realize, you know, a lot of the things that we do are subconscious. We've absorbed things from our
Yeah,
environment, and you know, in the first 7 years of our lives, you know, that's where your subconscious mind is formed and develops. You know, because you just, you know, as a child, you're just going around like a sponge. You're just soaking up, you
yes.
know, even like, you know, your parents' behaviors, what's happening, and that's all
We are free
molding
from
you.
all worries at that time.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. You're just soaking up the environment, and that's why you see a lot of children or kids who are very present, because they haven't got that filter yet where they're thinking about all these other crazy things, that they're just in the here and now, and they're
Yeah,
soaking and absorbing
very
what's going on
basic.
around them. Yeah. So you know, when you think about that, and you think about not just only as a kid, you know, as an adult, and being a person, being around the right people, being around the right things, and learning, I think, you know, how to, you're gonna be around people you might not get on with. You're gonna be in
Yeah,
situations that are gonna challenge you, but it's, as an adult, you have to kind of learn how to respond to those situations, and what
yeah.
you're going to do, and being mindful of that and knowing that. And I think people sometimes they know all these things, they know things aren't good for them, but they stay in it.
Yeah,
You know, you can get out of it.
yes.
I don't know
Uh,
if I've gone off topic too much, but
yeah, well said. And even it's just like master slave architecture, that, you know, we have to become the master of our system, master of our body,
mm,
master of our own self, not
mm,
just slave. You know, so it really helps
mm,
in our overall development of our
mm.
personality. And it's again a uplifting and blossoming approach. People are loving this concept. And in the times to come, it will be flourished, I think.
Yeah, most definitely. I think a lot of it as well, you know, goes back when you break down, you know, how our minds work, and, you know, tribal times, and, you know, going back thousands of years, and how, you know, our brains work, and, you know, how we behave. We want to survive. We want to feel like we belong. We want to, you know, as a tribe. It all goes back to,
Yeah.
you know, kind of, is that the right word? Caveman times, so to speak, you know, those kind of survival times, and being in a pack. And, you know, when you think about your DNA and your wiring, you know, and your ancestry,
Yes.
we're a part of all that. We've got that in us. So a lot of the times, our behaviors, we can't say, oh, it's because of my DNA, but to some extent, we've got the way that we think and behave sometimes kind of goes back to that, if that makes sense. It's in our wiring.
Yes. And with this, we get to acknowledge, we get to know about ourselves biologically as well, neurologically as well, that what is that internal proper functioning, what are our true origins. So that's really interesting and engaging.
Yeah, I mean, they're still learning things about the brain, aren't they? They're still learning things about how the mind works. There's still, scientists still, we know more about what's deep in the ocean than we do than the human brain. And when you think about that, that's pretty crazy. But I think as time goes on, as research gets more in depth, and it's really fascinating. It's interesting to see new research and new facts.
Yes.
So yeah, it's especially even with COVID, the impact of COVID and people's mental health. We're going to be seeing new research and articles in time to come.
Yeah, exactly. And Adam, this brings me to the end of this interview session. But truly, I am truly grateful to you that you managed time for doing this. And I must say, you are quite a true, genuine, and humble guy. We had a whale of a time. Really loved this chat. How you felt with this?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me, and I'm really grateful, for you invite me on the show, and I'm really grateful for your time. And yeah, I've had a really great time. I really appreciate you inviting me on the show. I think we've really touched base on some great topics and some great conversations. Yeah. And I'm really blessed that you invited me and we're able to do this. And I just wish you all the best in everything.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it was such a freewheeling chat. We have covered n number of topics that are quite relatable, that have that coexistence, with human beings. So really, I just appreciate your time, your consideration, your concentration for this, and I wish you great luck in all your future endeavors as well. More power to you, man.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. And we it's important to have these conversations. It's important to have conversations like this. More people, a lot of people out there do have these conversations, but it's important to have them. And I'm really grateful to be here, and I look forward to next time.
Yes, so sure. So, all right, I wish you luck and all the kind of best wishes. I just send you that light and joy for the times to come. And thank you so much once again. Have a great evening.
No, you too. You too. Take care. All the best. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Stay safe.